The Paracave Podcast, proudly brought to you by major sponsor Jack's Pale Ale, exclusively available at Parramatta Leagues Club, Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty, BTZD Clothing, and the official media partner of the Paracave Podcast, the Parramatta Times.
G'day, it's Gus Walland here from Gotcha for Life and Triple M. I'd love to invite you along to the Mental Fitness Gym. Go to the mentalfitnessgym.org. That is a place where you can pick up some exercises to build your mental fitness, to work on that emotional muscle, those muscles in your head that are so powerful. Please come and join us at the mentalfitnessgym.org for all that stuff to build your emotional muscle and your mental fitness.
Welcome to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Paracave.
And yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. Troy Warner here, and the NRLW regular season has been run and done and dusted. We only have 4 teams left in this year's premiership who have the chance to win it. The Newcastle Knights, can they go the three-peat? Can the Broncos win the competition again? The Roosters maybe, or the Sharks, can they win it for their first time in their history? They are the 4 teams remaining in this year's premiership, but this is about round number 9, the last round in the regular season, and it kicked off on Thursday night at Shark Park. It was the Sharks against the West Tigers. Now, it was a 12-10 victory to the Tigers. They're second in a row. They're second of the season. Unfortunately, they still did finish last in the competition, but their last 2 weeks, they have got victories in the last 2 weeks. So they have ended the season on a high. That is for sure. And also giving the Sharks a bit of a worrying period over the weekend, because they could have potentially been knocked out of the finals. There was a slim chance, but they still would have been nervous, although they would have been confident that their arch enemies, the Roosters, would have beaten the Eels at CommBank Stadium, which they ended up doing. But they still would have been nervous watching over across the weekend from Thursday night. And look, it was a good result for the Tigers. Obviously, as I said, it was 6-6 at half-time. And look, to get your second win of the season, as I said, gives you confidence for the future. There's a lot of young players at the Tigers. They don't necessarily have the superstars of the top 4 teams. And that's probably a bit of a difference in this competition, as the top 4 teams, they generally have a little bit more of your, I guess you could say, representative players in the competition. The Broncos, Roosters, Knights and Sharks, with a sprinkling of rep players through those other teams that didn't make the finals. But look, it was a great win by the Tigers, and look, something they can build on next year. Whether Brett Comorley is the coach or not next season, that still remains, but I think he will be at this early stage. And look, as I said, it was good to see the Tigers get the win over the Sharks. Tiana Penatani played against her sister, which was something good to see, I guess. Her sister, Natasha, and there was a good photo at the end of the game of those two standing side by side. I do believe it would have been the first time that they did play against each other, so that would have been pretty interesting, that is for sure. But for the Sharks, they will just want to put that away again. They would just want to put that away and concentrate on this weekend's game against the Broncos for the chance to get in the grand final. They have had a bit of a slip in the last few weeks of the competition, and hopefully that doesn't dent their confidence. But this final series is a new series, I guess you could say. It's a new, fresh chance, and if you can get it right on the day, then you can get the victory. But no doubt a tough challenge against the Broncos. We'll get to that a little bit later. The next game that was played was on the Saturday. There was a double header up at Queensland Country Bank Stadium up there in Townsville, and it was that team, the Broncos. They absolutely annihilated the Dragons, 44 points to 14, which was a massive win and a massive turnaround for the Broncos. They lost their first 2 games of the season, and have managed to win 7 straight. So they are going into this final series very, very confident, no doubt. They secured their 5th minor premiership in 7 seasons. A remarkable effort, that one. And they will be hard to stop against. As I mentioned before, they'll be playing the Sharks. So they'll be hard to beat up there in Queensland, that is for sure. But to this game against the Dragons, it was 44 points to 14. Steph Hancock, her 40th NRL game. I think she's retiring at the end of this year. What a player she has been in the NRLW, both in that and also for Australia and Queensland as well. But congratulations to her on her 40th appearance. The Broncos, look, a little bit of a worrying time for them. Romy Teitzel has been injured in this game and is in doubt for this finals game. So I think it was a little bit of nerve damage, I think it might have been. So very concerning there after they lost their rugby union convert winger Stacey Waka last weekend with a leg injury, but that they will be tough players to replace, but no doubt the Broncos will have those replacements in place. But Romy is a goal kicker as well for the Broncos, so maybe, I guess you could say, maybe just without thinking about it and without really knowing about it, maybe Ali Brigginshaw will take up the kicking duties again. She has done that in the past for the Broncos. But Julia Robinson, she got a double. Shania Sazolka, she got a double as well. So great to see those players getting tries. And as I said before, a remarkable turnaround for the Broncos, who lost their first 2 games and have won their 7th straight games going into finals. So they will be tough to beat. For the Dragons, they have sacked Jamie Soward as coach, so not too sure who will come in as coach for them next year, but a disappointing season, you could say, for the Dragons, finishing second last, only having 2 wins through this season, finishing on 4 points. They lost 7 games. A pretty disappointing season for them. Probably their highlight of the year was defeating the Parramatta Eels at CommBank Stadium, which ultimately maybe cost Parramatta a spot in these finals. It could have, but it wasn't to be anyway, but it didn't help their causes. The next game that was played was up at Queensland Country Bank Stadium, was the Cowboys taking on the Newcastle Knights, the defending premiers. They are looking to go 3 premierships in a row, and that was a disappointing result for the Cowboys, 38 points to 6. But the Newcastle Knights, they are coming into the, I guess you could say, business end of the season now. It is the finals, and they had a few weeks there where they lost a couple of games during the regular season, and it was a little bit of a struggle street for them, but they have picked themselves back up and they have got themselves into 3rd position, so they will take on the Sydney Roosters in the final, in the finals. But the Newcastle Knights, they're getting their confidence back. now, that is for sure. Sheridan Gallagher scored, the winger for the Newcastle Knights, scored 2 tries in 3 minutes, so that really cemented the victory there. Yasmin Clydesdale, she got the first try of the game in the 5th minute. It was 7 tries to 1. Yasmin has been playing some great footy of late after coach has said to her to get more involved in the game and make some more runs and the like. So she has definitely done that this season and has been one of Newcastle's best players this year. Also, Sheridan Gallagher as well can score a try. I see a couple of games ago before she scored a couple of tries as well. So great to see that one. It was 18-0 at half time. Very difficult for the Cowboys to come back. They did score in the 43rd minute, but look, all the damage was done earlier on, and the Newcastle Knights, they got the victory there, and look forward to this week now against the Sydney Roosters. The Sunday doubleheader was played at CommBank Stadium, and the first game that was played was between the Raiders and the Titans. The Raiders got the win, 16 points to 12, and they will be happy with that one. Again, a season that they will be disappointed with. Look, and in all seriousness, all the teams that didn't make the finals, they'll be disappointed with their season that they have had. But the Raiders, they lost a lot of games by minimal points. They only won 3 games throughout the season. As I mentioned, they did lose a lot of games by very close margins. But this game here, they got the victory and finished the season on a high. Arpy Nichols, the fullback for Canberra, she has signed with the New Zealand Warriors, who are coming into the competition, back into the competition, I should say, next season. She scored a try in her last game for the Raiders. Ash Quinlan, she scored a penalty try after being taken out in a tackle where she could have got the ball off a kick, I think it was. Look, I thought the Titans were going to maybe come back and get this victory after Sienna Lofipu scored in the 66th minute. I thought, with 4 minutes to go, I thought maybe, just maybe, they might jag this game, but unfortunately for them, they went down by 4 points. It was 10-4 at half-time. The Raiders were in control. It was 3 tries all, but the goal kicking let down the Titans, 0 from 3 conversions. Sahara Temera, congratulations to her, 200 points in the NRLW. The first player to do so. She brought that up yesterday with her goal kicking. She kicked 2 out of 3, so congratulations to her. 200 points in the NRLW, the first player to do it. So the Raiders, they end the season with a win, and the last game of the regular season was played between the Parramatta Eels and the Sydney Roosters. Now, this game was very interesting, I must say. The Parramatta Eels, they had to win the game. Initially, I think it was by about 35 points, if I'm not mistaken. It was a really high figure there. It was always going to be tough to get the win against the Sydney Roosters, who were looking for the minor premiership. They were looking to get that one. They fell 7 points short of claiming a minor premiership on for and against. The Broncos' difference was 116 points. The Roosters' difference was 110 points. So they finished 4 points in front of the Newcastle Knights, who their difference was 106. So very close up the top there. But to this game, look, it didn't start that good for Parramatta. Samantha Bremner scored the first try. She actually scored a double, played really well yesterday. Olivia Koenig got a try again. Amber Hall got a try close to the line. Jocelyn Kelleher with 4 out of 6 conversions. It was 18-6 at half-time, 6 tries to 3 victory to the Roosters. One highlight for the Parramatta Eels was Zali Faye's try. That was a cracker of a try, that one. If you can go and have a look at the highlights of the game, but it was basically a kick from Rachel Pearson across field, and she's basically caught it on the full and dived on the over the line. So that was a great try, that one from Zali Faye. Mahalia Murphy scored a try as well, the captain. She got a try after a Kasi Tohuhiku line break, and Mahalia scored the try. I was a little bit worried when she went into the in goal. I thought she was going to step out at one point. I'm thinking maybe just put the ball down, but she was trying to improve the position for Rachel Pearson, who is a pretty good goal kicker anyway. She kicked 3 out of 3. But I was a little bit worried. I thought Mahalia might have went out, but and a smart piece of play from Rosemarie Beckett to score the last of Parramatta's tries, the last try of the game. A Sydney Roosters player was called offside, and basically she changed the line and ran at that player and got a little bit of a gap and got across the line. So great play there. But look, all in all, as a Parramatta supporter, a very pleasing season for the Parramatta Eels. They fell short of the semi-finals, but they did have 5 wins this year and some pretty good wins at that. They played really well, especially their first round win against the Broncos. They suffered a few injuries throughout the season, most notably the Cherrington sisters, Ruben and Kennedy, who are pretty crucial players. Ruben got injured in that first game against the Broncos. Kennedy a little bit later on in the season, but big losses for the Eels. But those players that stepped in for them, Chloe Todd-Hunter, I think it is, at hooker, really played really well in the place of Ruben Cherrington. Certainly played every game from then on throughout the season and really made a good name for herself there. And also Parramatta unearthed a few other talents in this squad as well. Rory Owen, the centre, scored some unbelievable tries throughout the season. One against the Sharks that I can remember. I think one against the Broncos at the start of the year, and there was one against Canberra last weekend that was absolutely amazing in her debut season. Looks like she may be nominated for the Rookie of the Year, but certainly a good shout there, a good chance of winning that one. Chloe Jackson in the second row as well, her first year of NRLW, a real workhorse in that second row position, got the number 11 on, so probably a little bit of a player like Nathan Hindmarsh, I guess, just one of those that makes her tackles, takes her runs, and a real workhorse in the game. Also, Rosie Kelly in the centres as well. So Parramatta have unearthed a couple of great centres. They weren't even the first choice centres at the start of the year, but injuries and suspensions had to coach Steve Georgalis, who has done a magnificent job as well, had to pick some new centres, and these two, Rosie and Rory, absolutely amazing seasons in their debut years in the NRLW. So, look, a very much improved season from the Parramatta Eels. They will definitely learn from that. They fell short of finals this year. Hopefully next year they can come back bigger and better. That is for sure. So, moving on to this weekend, and as I mentioned, it is finals in the NRLW. So with the amount of teams that are in the competition, there is only a top 4. So there is only, I guess you could say, preliminary finals being played this weekend. The Broncos finished minor premiers, the Roosters, the Knights and the Sharks. So what does that mean for this weekend? Well, that means on Sunday, 2:05 p.m. at Totally Workwear Stadium up there in Brisbane, the Broncos will take on the 4th placed Sharks. Now, these two only played a couple of weeks ago now. and the Broncos got a last-minute victory through a try to Chelsea Lenarduzzi to win the game 20 points to 16. So a really close game, this one. It was 10-6 at halftime that time. But as I mentioned before, the Sharks have gone on a bit of a losing spree. The Broncos, they have lost their first 2 games of the year, but then they've gone on to a 7-game winning streak. So they will be tough to beat up there in Brisbane. As I mentioned, 5 wins or seven wins in a row for the Broncos, and the Sharks have lost to the Tigers, Broncos, and the Roosters in those last 3 weeks. So their confidence will be down, but this is a new week for them, and this is their one and only shot of making the grand final. And it is their first time in their history, the very short history, that they have made finals football, so they'll be giving it everything that they can. The Broncos, they are well experienced in this field, especially when it comes to finals. As I mentioned before, Ali Brigginshaw, she will be leading the charge there for them. So that will be a great game there. Look, I'll probably talk about that, who I will tip in the tipping podcast tomorrow. But the next game is at Allianz Stadium, also on Sunday at 4:15 p.m, and it is between the Roosters and the Knights. So, look, this is probably going to be the game of the NRLW finals, I guess you could say. 2 powerhouse clubs, the defending premiers, looking to go 3 in a row up against the Sydney Roosters as well, jam-packed with rep stars. The concerning thing for the Roosters was Isabel Kelly in that last game went off the field with a dislocated elbow, so probably in doubt of playing this weekend. It has been talked about that Jess Sergis and Taran Aitken may come back from injury to this game, so if they do come back, it'll be some big ins for the Sydney Roosters, which they will need to overcome the Newcastle Knights. The Knights got the win in the very first game of this competition back in round 1, 12 points to 10, so a very close fixture on that day. I'm expecting a bit more points to be scored in this game, but this will be a hard one to choose, the Roosters and the Knights. So stay tuned to the tipping podcast for that one, for my tips on that one. So, look, a pretty exciting NRLW season this year. The regular season is over, and it is now finals and then a grand final. But look, next year there is a couple more teams being entered into the competition. As I mentioned before, the New Zealand Warriors are coming back into the NRLW, and I do believe that the Canterbury Bulldogs are putting in a team as well, making some signings here and there as we go through this year. So they are coming into the competition as well. So another 2 teams that I know of are coming in, and I'm not too sure if there's any other ones to make it a it'll make it a 12-team competition, so an extra week of games next year, which will be good. I don't know if they will change the formula for the finals. I guess you could potentially maybe make it a top 5 out of 12 teams. That's top 4 now for 10. Could you make it a top 5 for 12 teams and maybe have... how would you work that one? The minor premiers have the week off the first week. You have a finals. You have 2 finals games, 2 weeks of finals in NRLW maybe. The Broncos, for example, this year the Broncos finished as minor premiers. They'd have the week off round 1 of finals, and then the next 4 would play the first week. The losers would be eliminated. The winners would go on. One would play the Broncos, for example, or the minor premiers, I should say, and then one would play the other winner of that game as well. So I don't know how that would work, but let me know your thoughts on that one. But I actually reckon it should be a top 5 next year, but at least we get an extra week of NRLW, so it'll be 10 rounds next year. Thank you very much for listening to the NRLW Wrap Weekly Wrap round number 9. As I mentioned, it is finals now, and I will be giving my tips on the tipping podcast tomorrow, so stay tuned for that one. But pretty excited to be watching these games on Sunday. Thank you very much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it with your family and friends. Please give me a follow on Instagram and Facebook, as well as giving me a follow on Apple and Spotify as well. That way you will know when a new podcast comes out. Thank you very much for listening, and if your team is competing in the NRLW finals, good luck to those. As I said, I'll be excited to watch these games on Sunday. Thank you very much, and look, as I always say anyway, even though they're not playing finals, go Para!
Hello, Paracave podcast listeners. My name is Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty and long-term sponsor of the Paracave podcast. If you're looking to sell your property or buy, or just curious to know what your property is worth in today's market, give me a call today on 0421 588 445.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. See you next time.